On this episode, join Abigail and me as we discuss the similarities and differences between a power on and departure stall.
It went a little bit too much to the right. There we go, recover. We need to get some altitude. Okay, we're at 2,300.
On this flight, Abigail and I are polishing up her proficiency to get her prepared to solo in an upcoming few flights. On a previous episode, we discussed power off and approach to landing stalls. On this part of the flight, we discussed departure stalls and spin awareness. To highlight this discussion, let's take a quick peek at the ACS or Airman Certification Standards. All pilot applicants preparing for a rating should become well acquainted with the ACS. The ACS is a list of areas of operation that an applicant must perform to satisfactory standard to an evaluator to be successful on a check ride. In the private pilot ACS, one of the required tasks is power on stalls. As an aviation educator, one must seek the spirit of these tasks to ensure that the student is meeting the intent of the rider. What do I mean? Power off stalls and power on stalls are tasks that must be performed at a level to demonstrate mastery of awareness, avoidance, recognition, and recovery. These two stall sets are also commonly referred as an approach to landing stall and departure stall, respectively. One of the things, though, as an instructor that is imperative to highlight to a new student is one of the required tasks within the stall series at the private pilot level requires the applicant to come to a full stall. The intent behind this is so that the applicant can demonstrate without doubt to an evaluator recognizing and recovering from a worst case scenario in the stall scenario. However, I also ensure during training that the student understands not to get into a habit of ignoring the stall warning device or buffeting unless specifically demonstrating the power off and power on stall series at a safe altitude. In other words, I train my students to know the difference. One is an intentional maneuver at altitude required to perform on a check ride, and one would be reacting to an inadvertent stall scenario in the traffic pattern. It is imperative that students understand the differences so that they do not formulate a habitual complacency of not reacting when the stall warning alerts. Failure to react to a warning would fall into a category known as normalization, a deviation. Watch this film as we go over departure stalls.
We need to get some altitude. Okay, we're at 2,300.
Repeat cold.
Yep.
I'm gonna set my flaps.
To the takeoff. Yep, let's get back up to 3,500. How do you like that?
That felt pretty good.
Yeah.
I was surprised that you couldn't feel the stall as well when you stay in it for a while.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and turn back to the left?
Sounds good.
Your left?
All right.
That's a heavy turn.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to do the departure stall. In this airplane, we take off with takeoff flaps according to the operator's manual. So you can practice departure stalls or power on stalls with flaps or without flaps. It just depends on where you're at in the departure segment, because at 300 feet it calls for the flaps to be retracted.
Should I start a clearing turn?
So go ahead and do a clearing turn.
Clear left.
Okay. So while we're clearing to the left, why don't you describe to me a situation where you could get yourself into a departure stall?
So departure stall, you could be distracted, or you maybe forgot to turn off carb heat or something, so don't have full thrust, and then you try and pick up the pitch altitude too fast.
Yep.
Or you might be chasing an airspeed and then overcorrect for it.
So, and those are all valid, but one real interesting way of looking at it is let's just say you take off from an airport that you're not used to flying out of, high density altitude airport, and there's rising terrain on the departure and the runway. Well, if there's rising terrain on the departure and the runway and high density altitude, and you see that the airplane's not performing the way that it should, you may lend yourself to want to do what would make intuitive sense by pulling back on the yoke to try to climb. Well, that's not going to help the situation. You're going to get on the backside of the drag curve, and then the airplane is going to stall because you're asking the wing to produce more lift. And when you're on the backside of the drag curve, when you're increasing angle of attack, you're actually increasing induced drag. So you don't increase lift, you reduce it, and you eventually get to the point where you exceed the critical angle of attack and stall. Okay, so now we're going to do the departure stall. Okay, let's talk about the departure stall. We already did a little bit. We're going to do it with takeoff laps. We're going to do it with carburetor heat coal. We've done our clearing term.
All right.
Okay, we're at 3,500. As a reminder, we've got to recover prior to 1,500 feet. We will. So all we're going to do, I want you to pick yourself a point out there. We're slowly drifting right. I don't want to do that. I want you to find a point, look outside, don't fixate. Okay? Now, there we go. Any point out there. Level of wings. All right, we're pretty much at our departure airspeed. So we set up for our departure configuration. We'll go to either our VX or VY speed. So reduce it back to 73. Okay.
4,000 contacted tower.
So that's 73. Now go full power. Now look at using your peripheral, looking outside, just bring it all the way back. And using the yaw string, remember, more right rudder is required with the reduction of airspeed. That stick, there we go. That string is hard left, so more right rudder. There you go. Right rudder, there you go. Keep coming back, all the way back. Bring it back. There we go. Now, as she wants to roll, you might have to, there you go. Keep pulling back. Don't hesitate. Bring it all the way back. A continuous climb about 1 knot per second. All right. And, all right, step on the right rudder. Okay, bringing it back. Okay, bringing it back. Okay, with a little bit too much to the right. There we go, recover. Okay. So, let's come back to the right.
Clear right?
Yep, this time we're going to try it with no reference to the instruments, okay?
Okay.
So, not bad, you recognize, you recover. And this airplane handles stalls, it's very forgiving. The one thing we want to make sure we don't do when we're operating in that stall regime, no matter what kind of stall it is, we're going to minimize our aileron movements.
Okay.
Because ailerons can actually disturb the laminar flow and induce the stall prematurely in an undesirable manner. In other words, one wing might get stalled deeper than the other, which is what? Which can turn into what?
A spin.
There we go. So this time, we're already set up at full power. Now what I want you to do, look at the peripheral. Look at how the aircraft is set oriented with the horizon, okay? Now, pull back, a little bit of right rudder will be required. Remember, step away from the head of the snake, but don't get excessive. There's the stall horn, keep coming back. Keep coming back. There it is. Don't pull the power back. Lower the nose, break the stall. See how you had to lower the nose more to break the stall? Let's do it one more time. Go right on back up, and this time without me saying anything. Because I want you to be able to do this without me in the airplane. React as if you would without me in the airplane, okay?
Dojo 22, great approach, clear altimeter 3012.
Okay, so a little bit late on recovery.
Okay.
Okay, what I want you to do without me in the airplane, when you hear that stall horn, react. Don't worry about waiting until you get to full stall, unless you're out here practicing stalls. What I'm talking about is a situation where you might be in a traffic pattern and you get that warning or something where you're close to the ground. That's what I'm getting at, okay? On this heading, I want you to do a straight ahead stall. But this situation, I want you to recover as if I were not in the airplane, we were not trained. I want you to recover as if you were on a departure phase of flight. Okay?
Alright.
So
I'm going to take the power down a little bit while I check takeoff.
you're already at the takeoff airspeed, so just pitch back.
Alright.
So react as you would real world on takeoff out of temple and you were by yourself.
Envoy 4062, traffic primary only, 11 o'clock, 3 miles, no movement. It'll
Excellent.
Be in between.
You hear that stall horn real world, you react.
It's very intermittent. I'm getting
Stall horn
every other
is a
sweep or so.
warning of a stall. Okay? Don't wait till you get the buffet. In training, we want you to be able to recognize what the buffet feels like, because you should not put your reliance into stall recognition into a horn. We want you to feel what the airplane is doing. The airplane will talk to you without the warning, but the warning's a good indicator.
Alright.
That's just one of the things that I want to really highlight, is that the stall warning should be adhered to, okay? Don't wait till you're like, oh, I'm okay, I'm going to let the stall horn go off and be consistent. We don't want to foster a normalization of deviation. If the stall warning goes off, react. Unless it's an intentional training maneuver at altitude, then it's fine. All right, clear, come to the right. But notice how I put this,
Clear right?
Clear right.
Now no longer observed, however.
Notice how I covered up the instruments and your directional control seemed to be a lot better. This time, okay, roll out on this heading. I want you to do it with the instruments, but I want you to.
Abigail and I continued our lesson through this flight and made our way back to Temple, where we practiced takeoff and landings and simulated engine out scenarios. It was a very productive lesson. Join us on our next episode as Abigail takes off for her first solo and loses her shirt tail. Until next time, fly safe, keep learning, and never give up on a dream. So long.